Hey everyone. So let's finish out chapter 14 by talking about some emerging infectious diseases. I think this has been kind of an interesting chapter in terms of understanding the pandemic, how diseases spread, and what kinds of things you'll see in a hospital setting. And one of those unknowns would be what kind of new diseases could be spreading to you in the future. So, an emerging infectious disease will be a disease that is either new or that it's changing. It might be increasing or it might have the potential to increase. Most of these are going to be zoonotic. Do you remember what that word means? Zoonotic means spread through an animal, likely something like a mosquito or some sort of vector. So they're likely vector borne. And they're often viral, not always viral. So monkeypox, COVID, a lot of these emerging infectious diseases are viral. To establish something as an emerging infectious disease, one is it needs to have symptoms that are clearly distinct from other diseases. If it is the same old disease, then it is not new. It is the same old thing. One could be identification of a new pathogen. So COVID-19 was a new pathogen that had evolved from other pathogens. One could be when a local disease becomes widespread, or if a rare disease becomes more common, or if a mild disease becomes more severe. Some things that can contribute to emerging infectious diseases would include genetic recombination. So genes recombine to form new combinations, and you end up with new strains. So one example would be E. coli 0157, which causes diarrhea. Avian influenza would be a recombination of other influenza viruses. One would be the evolution of new strains. So as DNA is mutated, this gave us V. cholerae 0139. This gave us COVID-19. Inappropriate use of antibiotics and pesticides, leading to antibiotic-resistant strains. This being one of those bacterial classifications, kind of the odd man out here. Changes in weather patterns, especially global warming, which means that reservoirs and vectors are more likely to survive and be able to spread into new areas. Something like hantavirus and malaria can spread through like this. Modern transportation, which allows something in a local area to travel around the world very quickly. Ecological disaster, war, and expanding settlement, which can break down people's access to healthcare, and also can take something that was isolated and spread it. Animal control measures. So something that's interesting is that as wolves were overhunted, we had an increase in deer population. When there's an increase in deer population, there's an increase in deer ticks. And when there's an increase in deer ticks, there's an increase in Lyme disease. So by a overhunting of wolves or by an underhunting of deer, by eliminating deer predators and not taking out that deer population, Lyme disease increases. And public health failures, especially if it leads to a lack of vaccinations, you can see outbreaks of diseases. Insect vectors, so mainly mosquitoes here, Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus are two species of mosquitoes. And one that hopefully you don't ever have to deal with, but bioterrorism could lead to an emerging infectious disease. So now you can tell us several examples of emerging infectious diseases. And let's study a little bit about the history of epidemiology. This is studying when and where diseases have occurred. And there are three famous investigations. One is John Snow, not that John Snow from TV, but a different John Snow. There was an outbreak of cholera, and he was able to study who is getting sick, what are they doing, where are they going, and he noticed they all had this common thread of using the same water pump. And so he took the handle off of that water pump, so that water pump stopped being used, and the cholera outbreak died down. There are modern investigations that there could be some more extenuating factors. The full story is probably more complicated than that. But in general, by stopping people, by studying what people are doing and stopping them from doing whatever is causing that disease, he led to the reduced spread of that disease. One is Semmelweis. Yes, that same Semmelweis I talked about our first week of class because I just love him. He showed that hand washing reduces the spread of puerperal fever and the mortality rate of women in childbirth. And Nightingale, you've probably heard of her outside of this class before. She's pretty famous. She was studying soldiers and different camps of soldiers during the Civil War, and noticed that some of them were not eating very healthy. And some of them were kind of unsanitary. They weren't taking proper care to wash themselves, to wash their dishes, to make sure that they were digging latrines sufficient distances from camp. So she was able to say that these different studies are leading to, these different factors are leading to outbreaks of typhus that were killing soldiers. So this led to 3 different types of epidemiology. Descriptive epidemiology, such as Edward Snow, is just collecting all the data you can about diseases. Where are the people getting their water? Where are they traveling? Who are they talking to? Who are they visiting? So this is descriptive epidemiology. Experimental epidemiology is using an experiment. So Semmelweis saying, if you are washing your hands and you are not, how does this affect the spread of disease? And then analytical epidemiology would be like Nightingale studying, here are the sick soldiers, here are the healthy soldiers. What's different between them? These are eating oranges and these are just eating same old hardtack every day. Hardtack every day. There we go. Okay, then CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This is an organization within the United States. They are headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, although they are throughout the country. They have the job of collecting and analyzing all the epidemiological information in the United States. And this is published in the weekly Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I do encourage you, if you are not yet subscribing to this, to subscribe to it. You can go to cdc.gov and it will just send you a weekly update about what is spreading around. As a healthcare provider, this is information you'll want. So go ahead and get comfortable with this. Some of those articles in the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report are very technical. Some of them are not. So some of them you may wish to just skim through. Some of them you may be more interested in and you study more. When we're talking about morbidity and mortality, these are 2 words that we often use pretty similarly just in kind of the lay culture, but they're different terms. Morbidity means the number of people who are affected by a disease. So what percentage of the population is sick? Mortality is the number of deaths in the population. So what percentage is actually dying? What percentage of the population who are getting sick are dying from the disease? Then to close up our discussion of notifiable infectious diseases, here are the diseases that physicians are required to report to the CDC. I do not expect you to memorize this table. And in fact, it has probably changed somewhat since I put this into your lecture video. But if you go through it, you can just see things like smallpox. That's pretty troublesome if you have someone come in with smallpox. This is a disease that has been eliminated. So you're going to call the CDC and let them know. Gonorrhea, HIV, chlamydia. Where's chlamydia? Chlamydia. These are things that you're going to call up the CDC and say, we have this. Antibiotic resistant infections, things that you don't want it to get out of control before it leads to you don't want it to get out of control before you get a control on it. You want to be able to limit its spread. Okay, so here's some questions. After learning that 40 hospital employees developed nausea and vomiting, the hospital infection control officer determined that 39 ill people ate green beans in the hospital cafeteria compared to 34 people who ate in the cafeteria but that same day but did not eat green beans. What type of epidemiology is this? We are comparing 2 populations, a sick group and a healthy group. What type of epidemiology is this? What is the function of the CDC? And a little case study. In 2012, the morbidity of West Nile encephalitis was 5674, and the mortality was 286. The The morbidity of listeriosis was 121, and the mortality was 13. So one of those numbers is telling you how many people are sick. One of those numbers is telling you how many people are dying. Which disease is more likely to be fatal? Would you be more freaked out if your doctor said, guess what, you have West Nile, or guess what, you have listeriosis? All right, that brings us to the end of this chapter. This was a longer chapter, but also a pretty interesting one, I think. I hope it helped put a lot of things into context for you in terms of disease spread and transmission and patterns, how it infects a person. I think it is very relevant clinically to those of you who are going on to clinical careers. If you have any questions, as always, please let me know. I'm happy to talk to you anytime, and I'll see you later. Bye.